just, you could actually just Google The Last Pipe by Christopher Morley, and it'll show up on the web. You don't even have to buy it. You can just read it on the web. And it is, you'll see what I mean. You will see what I mean when I say that literature that is 100 years old is the best. Absolute best. All right, so let me just take a little puff and we'll get this show on the road. And I'm going to be reading a essay called One Night Stands, and it's not about what you think it is. All right, that later is done. That has seen better days. And where is the lighter that I need? There's the lighter that I want and the lighter that I need. And I hope it's here somewhere. Oh, there it is. It's good to see everyone tonight. Ah, Peg, you know the smell that I'm talking about then. You know the smell that I'm talking about. It's, I mean, there's nothing like it. Out in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, when they are cutting the hay and baling it, there's nothing like that smell. Nothing like it. You can smell it for miles. I am feeling good. I was eating keto today. Let me throw this out. I don't need that. I think I have a lighter in my pocket that has a little more gas in it. I think. I do. Yeah. Let's see if this works better. It does. Sometimes I get a piece of tobacco that just goes in my mouth. And it bothers me till I get it out. Let me get the pipe going, because I'm sure that Christopher Morley probably was smoking a pipe when he wrote this essay. Are you enjoying the series Pipefuls by Christopher Morley? I don't want to be wasting your time, but I'm trying to inspire you to read literature that you may never have read before. And the quote-unquote pipe smoking genre, the pipe smoking author is it's a contemplative work. What time is it now? So, in about 20 minutes, Dr. Alan Harrelson will be giving his keynote speech at the G.K. Chesterton Conference, about 5 miles from here. This is an old-fashioned. 4 Roses bourbon. I put in sunshine jam, which is like an orange marmalade kind of thing. Seltzer water, and put a couple bitters in. I forgot the bitters. All this preparing. The ritual. My God, the ritual. Book recommendation for a 20-year-old man. Yes. Fiction or nonfiction? Thank you, Thea. It's never a waste of time. You find myself an Americano or Negroni? Yeah, excellent. Nonfiction. Uh, let me see. A nonfiction book. Atomic Habits. That's a good one. Atomic Habits. One Night Stands, written in 1920 by Christopher Morley. The illustration is this fellow right here. That right there. So we're going to start that. And these are short essays, short and sweet. To those looking for an exhilarating vacation, let us commend a week of trooping on one-night stands with a theater company, which mirthful experience has just been ours. So one-night stands referring to a one-night show at a small theater or a cabaret. We went along in a very lowly capacity of co-author, which placed us somewhat beneath the stagehands as far as dignity was concerned, and we flatter ourselves that we have learned our station and observe it with due humility. The first task of the director who stages a play is to let the author know where he gets off. This was accomplished in our case by an argument concerning a speech in the play where one of the characters remarks, "I propose to send a mental message to Eliza." This sounds, we contend, quite a harmless sentiment, but the director insisted that the person speaking, being an Englishman of studious disposition, would not say anything so inaccurate. He would use much more correct language, and the director would say he ought to say, "I purpose to send." We balked mildly at this. "All right," said our mentor. "The trouble with you is you don't know any English. I'll send you a copy of the Century Dictionary." This gentleman carried purism to almost extravagant lengths. He objected to the customary pronunciation of Jew's harp, insisting that the word should be juice harp, and instructing the actor who mentioned this innocent instrument of melody to write it down in his script. When the dress rehearsal came around, he was surveying the set for the first act with considerable complacence. This scenery was intended to represent a very ancient English inn at Stratford-on-Avon, and one of the authors was heard to remark softly that it looked more like a broker's office on Wall Street, but the director was unshaken. "There's an old English inn up at Larchmont, and this looks a good deal like it, so I guess we're all right." Let anyone who imagines the actor's life is one of Bevo and Skittles sally along with a new play on its tryout in the one-night circuit. When one sees the delightful humor, fortitude, and high spirits with which the players face their task, he gains a new respect for the profession. It is with a sense of shame that the wincing author hears his lines repeated night after night, lines that seem to him have grown so stale and disreputably stupid, and which the ingenuity of the players contrives to instill with life. With a sense of shame, indeed, he does reflect that because one day, long ago, he was struck with a preposterous idea. Put on the light here. He was struck with a preposterous idea. Here are honest folk depending on it to earn daily bread and travel on a rainy day on a local train on the Central New England Railway. Here are 800 people in Saratoga Springs filing into a theater with naive expectations on their faces. I was born and raised not far from Saratoga. Did a lot of work up there. Amusing things happen faster than he can stay to count them. A fire breaks out in a cigar store a few minutes before the theater time. It is extinguished immediately, but half the town has rushed down to see the excitement. The cigar store is almost next door to the theater, and the crowd sees the lighted sign and drops in to give the show the once over, thus giving one a capacity house. Then there are the amusing accidents that happen on stage due to the inevitable confusion of one night stands with long jumps each day when scenery and props arrive at the theater barely in time to be set up. In the third act, one of the characters has to take his trousers out of a handbag. He opens up the bag, but by some error, there's no garments within. Heavens, has the stage manager mixed up the bags? He has only one hope. The girlish heroine's luggage is also on stage, and our comedian dashes over and finds his trousers in her bag. This cast most sinister imputation on the adorable heroine, but our friend, blessings on him, contrives it so delicately that the audience doesn't even know or gets wise to it. Then doors that are supposed to be locked have a habit of swinging open, and the luckless heroine, ready to say furiously to the hero, "Will you unlock the door?" finds herself facing an open doorway and then she has to invent a line to get herself off the stage. Going on the road with a acting troupe is a very humanizing experience, and one gathers a considerable respect for the small towns that one visits. They are so brisk and so proud in their local achievements, so prosperous, so full of attractive shop windows. When one finds in Johnstown, New York, for instance, a bookshop with almost as well assorted a stock as one would see here in Philadelphia, or in Gloversville, or Newburgh, public libraries that would be a credit to any large city, one realizes the great tide of public intelligence that has risen perceptibly in recent years. I know all these cities. I have been to all of these cities, born and raised near them. At the hotel in Gloversville, the proprietress assured us that the English Duke had just left, who told her that he preferred her hotel to the Biltmore in New York. We we rather wondered about this English Duke, but we looked him up on the register and found that he was Sir H. Ernick of Founds Brothers, the glove manufacturers, who have a factory in Gloversville. Imagine the town of Gloversville, which I know well, was actually known for making gloves. But then, being a glove manufacturer, he may have been kidding her, as the low comedian of our troupe observed. But the local pride of the small town is a genial thing. It may always be noted in the barber shops. The small town barber knows his customers, and when a strange face appears to be shaved on the afternoon when the bills are announcing a play, he puts two and two together. Says, "Are you with that show?" he asks, and being answered in the affirmative, one would naturally not admit that one is merely in the frugal capacity of co-author, and hopes that he will imagine that such a face might conceivably belong to the low comedian. He proceeds to expound the favorite doctrine that this is a wise burg. "Yes," he says, "folks here are pretty cagey. If your show can get by here, you needn't worry about New York. Believe me, if you get a hand here, you can go right down to Broadway. I always take in the shows. I've heard lots of actors say that this town is harder to please than any place that they've ever played in. One gets a new viewpoint on many matters by a week of one-night stands." Let me repeat that. One gets a new viewpoint on many matters by a week of one-night stands. This is a theater troupe that plays in a different town every night. Theatrical billboards, for instance, we had always thought in a vague kind of way that they were defacement to a town and cluttered up blank spaces in an unseemly way. But when you are trouping, it's interesting. It's kind of like when you are in an acting group doing live plays and traveling from town to town. That's called trouping. The first thing you do after registering at the hotel is to go out and scout around the town, yearning for billboards and complaining because there aren't enough of them. You meet another member of the company on the same errand and say, "I don't see much paper out there." This being the technical phrase. You both agree that the advance agent must be loafing. Then you set out to see what opposition you are playing against and emit groans on learning that the $1 million doll in Paris is also in town, or Harry Bulger's Girly Show will be there the following evening, or Max Sennett's Bathing Beauties in Person. That's actually pretty funny. That's the kind of stuff they fall for, said the author mournfully. And you hustle around to the box office to see whether the ticket rack is still full of unsold pasteboard. At this time of year, when all the metropolitan theaters are crowded and there are some 30 plays cruising around the offing, waiting for a chance to get into New York, and praying that some show there will flop, one crosses the trail of many other wandering troops that are battering about from town to town in remote Johnstown, New York, which can only be reached by trolley, and where there is no hotel, but there's a very fine, large theater. One finds that Miss Grace George is to be the next attraction. On the train to Saratoga, one rides on the same train as the $1 million doll, and those who have seen her paper on the billboards in Newburgh and Poughkeepsie keep an attentive optic open for the lady herself to see how she lives up to her lithographs. And if the passerby should see a lighted window in a hotel glimmering at 2 in the morning, he will probably aver that there are some of those light-hearted show people carousing over a flagon of Virginia Dare. Little does he suspect that long after the tranquil thespians have gone to their well-earned hay, the miserable authors of the trying out piece may be vigiling together, trying to dope out a new scene for the third act. The saying is not new, but it comes frequently to the lips of the one-night stander. It's a great life if you don't weaken. Pretty cool. Pretty cool story written 100 years ago. Something just jumped out at me when it said, little does he suspect, after the tranquil thespians, the actors, have gone to their well-earned hay, the miserable authors of the trying out piece may be vigiling together, trying to dope out a new scene for the third act. The well-earned hay. This was back in the day when beds were, when a mattress was a giant sack and they stuffed it with hay. So going to bed, you would say, I'm going to hit the sack. There you go. Or hit the hay. So when he's talking about the actors after a long night of acting and drinking and carousing, they get a well-earned hay. Very interesting, right? So you learn something. 100 years ago, beds were made of hay. How fascinating, right? That's Christopher Morley's essay called One Night Stands, a commentary on the daily life of a traveling actor in a play, and that's called trouping. You learn some things that you didn't know previous to tonight. While I am smoking in a mini churchwarden Elizabethan mixture and drinking a well-deserved old-fashioned. That's nice. I dare you to buy pipes from Timu. Yeah, exactly. What are they made of? That's what I want to know. What are they made of? Like Roundup and styrofoam? Hello, Mr. Bruno. I want to keep a goatee and not sure of where to stop shaving up the neck. How far down the chin and how close to the neckline, jawline should the beard be? Great question. Think about your neck. Think about your jaw. Okay, there's your jaw right here. And there's your neck. I always like to say 2 or 3 fingers from where the neck meets the jawline. So for me, right now, my beard is 3 fingers up from where my neck and jaw meet. It's 3 fingers up. Some 2, mine is 3. So just think about 3 fingers up. That's how far it should go down. And don't trim your beard in a arc. Trim it straight across. Straight across. Now with a goatee, obviously, you could actually do like a little arc. But if you have a full beard, the beard goes like this, straight across, horizontal line. That way you're not chopping off the back of the beard, which gives it a more full look. But remember, do you want a 2 finger or 3 finger line? Mine is 3 fingers. Just a little tip. Who would ever think that, right? I have done enough beards in my lifetime to know that kind of stuff and have grown enough beards. There, we got the flickering fake candle going. So if I'm aiming for the mustache and chin and nothing on the jaw, the 2 finger rule still applies. Yes. Yes. Like for instance, when I have a goatee, I usually clean this out right here. That's all skin. Now I'm growing it back, and you know, I had the goatee for about a month, and I do that every year. I cut down to a goatee and I keep it for about a month, and then I grow it back as usual. Where's my little comb at? And then so many people think that this beard, when it grows in, it's perfect. It's. I have a very patchy beard, and I grow it long in some areas to cover the skin. So, but this area here, see the skin? There's no whiskers there. But I grow this, it's almost like a caterpillar. I grow that long enough so in about a week or 2, that will completely cover that area and you won't know that there's skin there. It's the same thing. I have like skin here and skin like right around here, but I grow the hair long enough. Some practical beard growing tips that most people never tell you. Mohammed, sir, sending love from Iraq. You changed my life, man. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you and much respect. I'm not sure when I'll be reading Christopher Morley again. I'm thinking like maybe next Monday night. Arnold says, thinking of dyeing my beard. My gray face makes me older than I like. If you color your beard, you will regret it. Take my word for it. You will regret it. You will regret it. I used to color my eyebrows much darker, and then I'm like, you know what? Just let the gray go. Now I just